1874, First Nations chiefs of what is now southern Saskatchewan signed Treaty 4. The treaty promised a school in the reserve allotted to each band as soon as they settle on said reserve and are prepared for a teacher. First Nations people saw their children's education as a means of acquiring new skills that would help them adjust to the changing economic and political order. However, the education system the government eventually developed in partnership with Christian churches was not the one envisioned in the treaty. Round Lake Indian Residential School opened in 1885 on the shores of Round Lake, just north of the Ochapowace Reserve. The people interviewed for this film are former students and family members of former students. Let's listen to their stories about life at the school and how it affected them and their families.
1916, I think, around there, he talked about going down there when he was 4 or 5 years old. And they were forced to go down. They were picked up and no one really knew how to talk English. So he talked Cree. When he got down there, he had eczema on his face. He was his blood problem. And he said the boys used to beat him up and everybody would make fun of him in school. He said he went through school, then he got TB and he went to Fort Sand for a while and almost died there, and then he made it through, got better, come back to school, and there was a lot of hunger. They were hungry all the time. They would try and steal food from the pantry, and the girls, if the girls worked there, they would sneak a little bit of food to their brothers, little brothers, sisters, if they could get some. And they would steal chickens and they would cook them in the hills. My uncles talked a lot about that, about cooking chickens up on a hill. And there was an old lady that looked after the milk with the cattle. And my dad would go milk and she'd give them cookies and bread. And they could drink that milk. When they were milking, they would drink some to get full. And she was really good to them, that old lady. And she always asked the principal to send these boys down to help me milk and look after the cattle, and they were always glad to go because they knew they were going to get cookies or get a little sandwich or something, because they were always hungry in that school. But there was one funny thing that happened to my uncle, the late Sam Watson and Uncle Ernest George. And they grabbed chickens and they didn't even kill the chickens right away. They took them on a hill and killed them up there, and they plucked them up there, and they thought they killed them all, but they didn't kill this one. All of a sudden the chicken took off, he had no feathers, and he was going to run back to the barn. But they said they knew how to survive good. They would go fishing with an old grandfather that was blind, Charlie.
Cinnabon?
Yeah,
Oh.
Blind Charlie they call him.
Yeah.
And he would get these 6 boys, he would give them bannock and soap. His wife would cook bannock and soap for them so that they could eat. Hunger was a big thing in them days in our schools, I guess in the community also. The older boys, they were probably 5 years older than us. We had one called Toy Boy,
Oh, yeah.
Ronald Allery. And
Is he called also Tinker?
yeah, his name was Tinker too, because he was always a tinker guy,
Oh, yeah.
touching everything. And he got blamed for burning the barn,
Oh, what?
but he said he never burnt the barn. There was somebody else that lit a match or something else happened, but he was seen there. That's why he got the blame. They stretched his hair up in the air and they stepped on his feet. And they were making him scream for help while they held him hard like that. And after that they shaved his head. My grandfather Peter told him at that school that they weren't allowed to touch his grandchildren, that they should leave them alone.
And he became the chief of the reserve?
Yeah, he became the chief later. He asked for one term.
Yeah.
He said, he told a band membership, give me one term. I'm gonna get a school on the east side of our reserve. We're driving 9.5 miles.
Yeah.
And that's too far for our little children. They're catching cold. And within 2 years, we were in that school.
Yeah.
He was a good chief. Like he knew how to work with Indian affairs. He kept his word.
Yeah. But that was his
Prime reason for getting
little
in.
Kakeshua school is called?
Yeah, the little
The first
green
one,
school,
eh?
yeah, at the east side, yeah. Kakeshua. All of my aunts went down there. Auntie Maribel, Auntie Ruth, you know, Uncle Sam, Uncle Ernest. The whole older generation of them all went down there.
Can you quickly tell me about when your dad stood up to whoever was trying to force you guys to school?
Well, they came, I can only remember they came and they were dressed nice. And they had briefcases. So they come to see him and they told Mr. Watson, we're putting kids in school, they can't be out of school. It's the government that's telling us we have to put them in school. And I remember we were crying and we were scared because they were going to take us away, like what they did with my dad. He told them, I got tortured. I wouldn't let my kids go, God take me first. So they left. And then Dad told us, I'm not going to let you guys go down there. And then they all had meetings, the east side men and women. So it was really, really a pressing time for our east side of our reserve here. And the other half went to the west school.
Ochap school.
The Ochapowace school. And all the other half of the reserve come to our school. From Solomon Stills this way, everybody came. And from that other way, everybody went the other way. He said, it says in a treaty that they'd give us a school, a little red schoolhouse. That's what he went on. We want that little red schoolhouse here on the reserve. You promised that education to us. I can't parent there. I can parent here. He was a very, very powerful First Nation traditional man. So I stand on both sides. Of being, only a grade 8, but yet it helps me get by in life. They have, as they parented me, they taught me to work hard, to be try to be a good person. They taught me to cut grass or any way to keep it clean. Always keep a place clean if you have visitors. That's what I do here in this reserve. I really follow that close.
I've learned a lot. They taught us how to sew, cook, and that's most of the time like I said this morning, all we did was work. And a lot of it, we made about 3 hours of school every day. So we all should know how to work and be clean at home, stuff like that. English, we had an English teacher. And then we had other teachers, from grade 1 to whatever, eh? And they taught us how to write, read, math. Everything was natural. I went to grade 8, I passed to grade 9, and then we started going to the day schools.
Geez, these are hard to see. This one looks familiar.
Oh, that's probably south of the schoolyard somewhere. CGIP used to have.
I know I wasn't a choir because I have a picture of myself.
that would be the CGIP choir.
Yeah, look. That's like you. Looks like you. She didn't
Looks like you.
Looks like she didn't want to be known.
It would have been Merle. This is you right here, Merle.
Yeah,
Yeah?
I know.
All right, okay. And Ida?
Didn't want to admit it.
Where was this one taken?
With ducks.
Niskak.
You must have raised ducks here, eh?
Oh, yeah. This teacher that you saw in the picture with the kids on the steps,
Oh, yeah.
he used to do that.
Oh, yeah. Is this the building we're in right
Yeah,
here?
yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Mom was raised here. She went to school here and was raised here. Her mom had passed away. So when Mr. Woods was here, Mr. and Mrs. Woods, then they had dedicated this place in memory of my mom, because she was one of the oldest students, and she was really faithful to the church. I'm sorry I didn't ask Mom, because I know she went through a lot, and but I guess that's the way it is, and I'm the only sibling that came to school here. The rest of my siblings didn't. They went to day school. So they don't know what I went through. And I haven't really told my kids, So, like, every time I come down here, when I want to come and visit the place, I get emotional. I get very emotional. It brings back a lot of memories. And, like, I know my grandmother, my great-grandmother is buried up here someplace in the hills. Actually, I'm thankful, in a way, that I went to boarding school. And then my mom, in turn, taught me after a lot of stuff that she had learned here. We all got excited, of course, and didn't know who burnt it, but it was the boys. And then they got their heads shaved after. They had all bald heads after before burning the barn down. The students used to steal, too, from the kitchen. When they'd get hungry, they'd go and take some food, put it in their pockets. Things like that were happening. And I think they say I went to school here 4 years. When I was a little girl, 4 years. 46 to 50, that's 4 years. Yeah.
So your mom would have been probably in here in the late 30s or something?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
She was 93 when she passed away. 14 years ago. Yeah. She passed away in 2002. She taught me how to bead, and she taught me how to knit and crochet and, things like that.
Yeah.
And to bake. That's why I'm a good baker now.
Yeah.
Like I said, I learned a lot. I wasn't into the partying kind. I didn't drink. I didn't smoke. I grew up the way my mom taught me. She wasn't like that. Her life wasn't like that. And that's the way I've been raising my kids. And now and again we sit down and they ask me, what I used to do or what we used to do and who we're related to and things like that. So, and I always tell them, well, I said, if I was raised a drunk, where would I be today? You kids wouldn't have what you have now. It gets pretty lonely sometimes, thinking, just to think of my mom when she was raised here. She had no mom. It must have been lonely, Nobody to come and see her. And then I came here. But I'm thankful for the life I've lived. I'm 77 now, so I'm still going strong.
I think this is one of her, when she was a young girl working at the Broadview Hotel. Yeah. That probably would have been 1940 maybe, eh?
Somewhere in there,
Yeah.
44.
Yeah. My mom said she worked at the Broadview Hotel too. This is her brother Willie.
My youngest brother.
Oh, he was the youngest and he was a school teacher in Mooseman, eh? Mooseman.
Yeah, they were both teachers in Mooseman. Yeah. He was a principal of
Andrew's the principal.
Yeah.
Didn't he teach south of Mooseman too?
Yeah,
Little
Fairlight.
Oh, Fairlight
Yeah.
School. Yeah, yeah.
And this one, he taught high school.
And your dad's name? What was his name?
Alex.
Alex.
George.
Alex George. And this was her mom,
Clara.
Clara Alexson.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, her
This
mom
is-
too,
This is my mom, too.
dressed in her nice outfit.
And that's my brother.
Oh, your brother! I didn't know that was your brother, Ernest. I knew him.
Yeah.
This is Ernest.
Ernest.
George.
There was Ernest.
Who's this lady?
Lucy
Lucy
Belanger.
Belanger, and she's getting married to
Angus Alexson.
Angus Alexson. Yeah. That's it in Kakwistown?
Yeah. Well, no, out on the Lonesome Prairie.
Okay, right on.
Yeah.
This is the principal, Mr. Ross,
Mm-hmm.
and this one dressed in
Selma.
Selma Francis.
Selma Francis. Florence Tepatat. Lillian Tepatat. Mrs. Tharian. Jessie Watson. Marie was a case. Alice Bear. Mrs. Ross. Agnes Kay. Jean Thomas. Alice McKay. Aggie Thomas. Winnie Gaddy. Flora Alexson. Mary Mary Tepatat. Flora Gaddy.
Flora Gaddy.
And Delma. And
Dalma.
Thelma.
Cinnabon.
Yeah, and Gladys Bear.
Gladys Bear.
And this is Georgina Fable.
That poem.
Well,
Did you teach her?
no, she learned that from school.
Oh, okay.
When she went to Kennelton's country school,
Oh, okay.
yeah, she recited that in
By heart, she knows the whole
Yeah.
thing.
the whole thing.
She got me to help one time at the old seniors hall, and I was surprised she knew the whole thing.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
said, well, how did you learn that? I said, she
yeah.
must have learned when she was just young, eh?
Yeah, she was in going to school at Kennelton.
Where is Kennelton? Is that
That was
where your old farm is that way?
where we used to live.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did she used to dress up in a little Indian outfit?
She dressed up in the Indian outfit and Christmas time.
I was surprised she knew that poem
Yeah.
all the way through the legend of the cow.
Yeah.
I was curious. I was thinking, I wonder if you taught her.
I'm Ross Ellery. I'm from Ochapowace, Cree Nation. I heard some stories about the Round Lake School. I never ever went there, but I did visit it when it was in operation when I was very young, and went to the boys' play area, I guess, and these older boys, they filled up a lunch kit full of stuff and they gave it to me. But my brothers come and took it away on me and told me to put it back. so I never did get anything from there, but these guys were pretty happy, I guess. I went to visit there. The boys would go in to the hen house and steal a chicken and go up in the hills and cook it because they were starving. And there was children that ran away, and I'm pretty sure there's a few that froze on that Lonesome Prairie, what they call it, Lonesome Prairie, on top of the hill from the Round Lake School. The kids just made it that far, cold winter, and froze. And my dad worked there as, I guess, kind of worked at where the livestock was. He said they used to bring cattle from there to Ochapowace, which is just across Number 9 Highway, on top of the hill there. That's where they kept their cattle. So that's how I become involved in Ochapowace and Kakishio, because Kakishio chose all around Lake. He didn't choose south part, north part, and they got down even with the name. He said, I'm going to take it all that will be in Kakashima. So then Chickachas was going to round up all his people and bring them home now. So they live on their reserve, and he died someplace in Alberta. So we never had a chief for about 30 years. But that's the reason why, because they wouldn't, Indian Affairs wouldn't accept what the people wanted. And they put Ochapowace in there, and that's how our name become Ochapowace Reserve when it's supposed to be Kakishio. We're in court right now. We had hearings the other day, and we're trying to make the courts see the wrong that was done to us by putting us together, putting two nations together. When there's two nations that signed or put their mark on Treaty 4 was Kakishio and Chickachas. So there was a reserve that was surveyed for both of them, but the department saw that they should put us together, and that's what they did. And they didn't even ask anybody, but no one, older people said they would never ask that. All what was said was Chickachas came and asked Kakishio if he could look after his people while he went to look for the rest of his band members. So that's how we come together.
Did your brothers, your older brothers, Alex and them, did they attended that school?
Yeah, Ronald was the oldest. He went there, and they blamed him for burning down a barn. And he said the cops came, RCMP, and they pulled him by the hair and stepped on his toes to make him say that he burnt that. But he said there was a tractor in there, and they started that tractor, and the exhaust, maybe the sparks from there, maybe got onto the hay. Simeon
Eddie, yeah.
Yeah, Eddie Belangi, that one. He told me that when he got out of school, he started working for Walter, I think, or Martin, one of them. Martin Isaac, they would cut wood, so that's where, he said he got 100 loads of wood, but I figured how could there's no room over there, but that's how small that Round Lake was. It flooded all that area where that wood was. So all on the south side of the river, that all flooded all the way back to what it is now.
One of your roles as leadership on the Ochapowace First Nation was through the treaty land entitlement.
Yes.
And maybe you can tell me a little bit about how the church, the Presbytery out in the United Church, offered that land for sale back to Ochapowace.
Yeah. Well, what they put that, I don't know, I forget how many acres, 12 acres maybe. They said, it was too expensive for them. So we had a meeting with them and put an offer on the table, what we thought we should pay for it, and we did, and they accepted. So that's how we bought that bit of acreage there. Because Kakishio said he chose all of Round Lake, not the south, nor the north side. It said all of it.
So it was through the TLE, the Treaty Land Entitlement of Ochapowace, that they repurchased. They had the funds to buy back
we had
what was called Camp McKay.
Mm-hmm. Well, they didn't want us to use have a hotel there with something beer and stuff like that. They didn't like to hear that.
Yeah.
So we told them we're not.
Yeah.
But any denomination can go there and have a camp for the summertime and use them cabins, you know.
Yeah. Do you have any recollection about old Margaret Bear, or she would have been Margaret Assiniboine? Margaret
Yeah.
Bear Chapel?
Yep. Yeah, that's there down there, and it's in those trees there.
Do you think that's how Lonesome Prairie got its name up there on the top of the hills, was because of the residential school?
Probably, yeah, it was, probably Lonesome Prairie, I guess, yeah. And when they got there, they would start crying, I guess, and they were going back to school. A lot of children didn't like to go back to school.
Round Lake was where most of the students from Ochapowace and Kakiwishtaha and Kawasis went. I started school in Round Lake when I was 8 years old, I think 7 or 8 years old. 1947, 48, somewhere there. Spent 4 years in Round Lake. I didn't have any other place to go to school, so and my mother didn't want me to go to a different residential school, so she had a friend in Whitewood that suggested that both my brother and I started school at the same time. He started grade 1 and I was grade 4. Completed my elementary grade there, and after I graduated from high school in 1960, I enrolled in Teachers College. Well, first I had my a standard certificate,
All right.
which allowed me to teach for 3 years. You know, I've always been interested in young people, kind of encouraging them to go to school. And as it turned out, many of them did take my advice, and they did go to pursue higher education. I had my brothers there, both, we used to call him Campy, Ronald.
All right.
And Mike and Elmer is what his formal name was, Elmer.
All right.
They were both at the school there.
Oh, they attended school there as well?
Yeah. That's what made it easier for me to go to school there.
You had family there?
Yeah, I had family, yeah. I didn't have any bad experiences on my own, but I saw the treatment some of the students got. I don't know if you remember Ronald Allery?
Yeah.
Toy Boy, we used to
Right.
call him. He was accused of stealing food. And the police came, they cut his hair.
Oh my.
He had a nice growth of hair and they cut his hair. That's the way they punished him.
Yeah. Did they have any kind of Indian education there, or was it just mainly?
No, it was European style. Yeah. There was no Cree language taught or anything like that.
Yeah. So that experience, the residential schools in a sense were set up to take the Indian out of the student.
Correct, that was what it was all about, yeah.
At that time.
Yeah. Well, you know, for myself, because I had family there, I didn't find it difficult at all. The only thing is that I never saw my parents for 2 weeks at a time. But my experience there was pretty good. I was very comfortable with it. The bell regulated all our activities. The boys would sleep in the upper level there, like I said. The girls would be the lower level. We would do our cleaning up, our washing, and
make your beds.
And get ready for
dinner, breakfast.
We'd have the principal would come and conduct a prayer. And we'd get ready for breakfast. And the bell would ring again, and the supervisor would line us up and march us down to the dining room. And our number would be placed in front of our plates after the principal would say grace. We'd be seated and we would eat our breakfast, and most of the time it was just porridge and skim milk. We used to watch the staff. They would have a very good breakfast, full serving of whatever they ate. It was better than what we were given. After breakfast, boys were assigned different little jobs. I would sweep the floor and kind of just tidy it up. When the bell rang for us to go to class, we would go out of the playroom down to ground level and then walk across to the classroom building.
Oh, yeah.
Well, what I can remember is every time the bell rang, it meant something. It meant that the student had to do something. Either when you heard it first thing in the morning, it was a signal for you to get up, get ready for breakfast. And then it rang again to signal us to go to breakfast. And then after that, there was another bell to signal us to go to class. The older boys worked in the barn and helped with the farming.
Right.
And the younger boys just kind of did chores around
In the schoolyard.
within the building. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We played outside till around sunset, and the bell would ring, and that would tell us to come in off the playground, and we would line up again. We would be marched up to the
Dormitory?
Dormitory, yeah. We were expected to go to bed, but none of us really went to
Got to lay there and wait.
Yeah, we used to spend much of our time watching people in their boats, motorboats,
Oh, yeah.
going around the lake. They come around the lake and
Yeah.
they make kind of a circle at the end of the east end there and go around.
Yeah.
Yeah, day in, day out, that was what happened, yeah. Christmas time was concerts, and Christmas concerts. We had our parents were invited to come and sit in on a concert and see us, the kids perform. We performed some kind of a play or something. And my message to the students is never give up. Just keep trying your best, doing the best job you can. And if you work hard enough, the reward will be at the end when you complete your education. And pursuing higher education at university to wherever post-secondary institution there is, teachers college or whatever interests they have. I always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to be a teacher. I was a Mr. Bell. He kind of adopted me. He got me to help him do little chores with him. He would take all the younger boys and we would go on a reserve side. We would go on a hike there.
You did a lot of heart-wrenching work on the Ochapowace Reserve, the impact of colonialism.
Yes.
Maybe can you give me a little synopsis of what all that's in there?
From Treaty 4
Yeah.
all the way up to
modern day?
To modern day, yeah.
I understand that Kakishwa is your great mushroom, or
Yeah.
the original signer of Treaty
yeah.
4?
Would have been my dad's uncle, Ochapowace.
Was his son, right?
Yeah.
I would think something like this is like a legacy for our community. And I would like to personally thank you for doing all that amount of work.
Well,
and putting your heart and soul
yes,
into.
I did. But it was The reward at the end is that I completed it, and I think it expressed what I wanted to say.
Right.
Well, it was a lot of hard work. Took a lot of time, and I sometimes wondered if it was going to be worthwhile. The school being on my reserve was something that I wanted to experience that with the people on reserve. It made me happy to see that just having a school built on reserve indicated to me that the importance that the people placed on education. I was really proud of my people, and I was proud of the Chief Denton, he himself was interested in education.
Who was the principal after that?
Ron Gillis.
Ron Gillis, yeah, he spent almost 20 years there, right?
Yeah. When I left the school at the turn of the century, I guess,
Yeah.
the students didn't have a lot of interest in keeping the school alive. They would at times I felt that they were taking the school for granted. They didn't realize just how much effort and time was spent to put that school there.
It was our first adventure to non-native education, and it was important in that sense that things were strange. I mean, we had coal oil lamps on reserve, wood stoves, and we went to a place that had its own electricity, its own plumbing, and so it was sort of a strange part. And so we had flush toilets in the main building. During the day we had outdoor toilets, which we were used to. So the experience was a transition from a style that was very primitive on our reserve. Scheduling, again, it was a different style in our home community. As you know, we have a freedom of doing things. Things happen when they happen. So it was a whole new thing of attending the residential school for us, because we got into a routine, which is more military in style. I had a twin sister named Ida Wazakiss. Her and I attended residential school at the age of 5 because our birthday is November, and we were going to turn 6. So we went to school at residential Round Lake as a beginning. My grandpa was a big part of that school and sharing with the children at the school, and also with the community. My grandpa, Walter Ochapowace, was the chief on Uchap, and also a very important leader in the southern part of the Indian Territory in Saskatchewan. We grew up in the traditional sense. But he also honored the Christian relationship with that, and it was important for him to also honor others coming in, and he respected that, but he also expected to be recognized reciprocally. We grew up with my grandpa, Walter Ochapowace, and Walter had his morning ceremonies, morning singing and so on, same at night. And so when we went to school, there was no storytelling, but we were made to pray and kneel to the bed, which was not our tradition or way of doing things. But one of the most difficult things that we had to learn was English. Cree was not allowed to be spoken in the school. But as we went to school, then of course we learned a whole bunch of other kinds of traditions and tools and rules, and a method of raising people. Although we lived as a communal, I mean, we had 4 families that lived in a house, and, you know, with a number of about 4 kids each. So it was we knew how to grow that stuff, and we all had. But the grandpa was the one that gave us the traditions, the singing, the psalms, the legends, and the stories of the people long ago. If you were resisting, and we really weren't resisting, we just didn't know the damn words in English. Mm-hmm. And so if we did that, then they would tape us our mouth and promise that we were going to speak English. We were, there 2 years, I think, but some decision was made somewhere or to shut it down. Round Lake was no longer going to exist. But what they forgot to do was build a school for us. There was no school. And we always felt that the Catholic priests were the ones that were demanding that schools close, because all the Protestant schools got closed, but Catholic schools remained open.
Could you tell me a little bit about maybe your arm? Was it in the school where you had the accident?
So we had an exercise ladder in our playroom, and the idea was to jump the rings, and who could jump the rings without, say, you got 2 or 1, 2, 3, whatever. And and the older boys always challenged us, but there was one thing that they never let us know, is that one of the rings was loose. They fake it that they couldn't jump that ring, go ahead and win, you know? So of course that's what happened. I was trying to be the winner and flipped off the laddering of exercise ladder and lost my arm, broke it. They took me to the hospital in Broadview. So when we got there, it was too swollen, so they taped it up. And the hospital at Broadview at the time where we had non-natives and natives in sections. So my Uncle Joe was there, and I went to show him my fingers were turning blue. I didn't know what it was about. And by the time they made a decision to cut my arm, which was the next day, it had gone above my elbow. So they cut my arm, lost my arm.
It's quite the story for me, because I was born in 1944, and my mother passed away in early October of when I was either turning 3 or 4. We all were governed by an Indian agent when you lived on the reserve. He probably thought in his mind that my dad was incapable of raising kids and being a single parent. And he felt that maybe there should have been a female presence in the household. And as a result, I was taken from my dad and placed at Round Lake Residential School. I didn't attend classes. I was, at that time, there was no nursery school or junior kindergarten or senior kindergarten of that type of, as we know today. The staff took it upon themselves to raise me and more or less educate me in the life skills that they were raised by. From the stories that previous relatives have told me, I was able to understand and speak Cree. However, that changed pretty quick because they started educating me to learn English. They turned me away from having to speak my own language. And I don't think I was alone. I think there were other kids like myself who spoke their Indian language, but yet they were also taught that they couldn't speak that language. They had to speak English. My classroom time was with the staff, whatever, it'd be in the kitchen or in the, or more or less in the living room, you know, just doing the things that a kid did, you know. In 1950, I was shipped off to Portage la Prairie Residential School. My cousin Florence Isaac would tease me about Mrs. Curry, you know, because she was the one that took me under her wing, so to speak, and raised me. And but she was quite firm with me that if I spoke Cree, I was punished for it. I would either get my hands slapped or I'd be spanked, not understanding why I couldn't speak my language. I felt humiliated and ashamed. Some of the stories I remember, my father would come and visit, And the one incident that I remember most vividly was we got out of sight of the staff. He proceeded to take me back to Ochapowace House, and he more or less took me away without the permission of the authorities at the school. The Indian agent knew where he lived, so 2-3 weeks later, the police did arrive and arrested him and took him away in handcuffs. I went through residential school all my life. Very seldom would I ever go home, mainly because sometimes I had no parents, like my uncles and aunts. If they could afford it, they would bring me home. I did a lot of basic education learning from work experience, but throughout my work history, I've always tried to better myself by learning different courses through work that would apply to my job and that would ensure my security in employment. But the only thing I could never regain is my language. And I think that was, to me, that's important, to learn your language as much as you can, and also to learn your cultural values, and incorporate what's good out of the cultural values and incorporate it into your lifestyle and your workplace.
I was 8 years old when I had to go to school, and I didn't know I was going to go to school. I didn't know where I was going, and I didn't know English. I didn't even know my name was Hazel. My Indian name? Well, we all had Indian names. My Indian name was Jawanashi. We lived at the west end of Crooked Lake, right at the end of west end of Crooked Lake. I did not know that it was Shishi Preserve. My mother and dad, myself, and Russell, and I had a sister in 38. The baby was gone. That's all I remember. My sister had passed away in 1938, and her name was Elizabeth. I went to school in September 1941 to 1949. But I was lonesome. I wanted to come home. We had our own playground on one side boys, small girls, intermediate girls, and big girls. But big girls did work. We made our own bed, and we had to always make our beds. We made our own beds, not just any old way. We had to make them nice and neat. One staff, she was a seamstress. She couldn't speak English. I guess she didn't know us by our names. We had numbers. My number is 21. From the time I started school, that was my number. All of us had numbers on our clothes. Oh yes, we belonged in the choir.
Oh, okay.
Not right away, but when we started being teenagers, Canadian Girls in Training, CGIT.
Right.
We had to practice because we had a teacher that taught us how to sing. We had a truck, I guess. A truck where we had to stand up, because we used to always sing on a Sunday in front of the people, at every Christmas time, a concert, and the parents would all come and watch us. 4 girls would be we used to scrub the floors, do them dormitory floors on our knees. And some girls worked in sewing clothes, mending jeans by hand. They gave us food to eat, but we had to eat everything up.
Oh yeah. What was that, like porridge in the morning? Or?
Porridge and milk and bread. I used to always find that it was like not enough food there. Yes, there's one funny story there I can't remember. During recess time, the boys were saying, well, we used to listen there. We'll get a chicken. We'll get a chicken. We'll go and eat it after school. So they got this chicken, they plucked it there. That chicken was walking around with no feathers. So now they had to catch it because they're getting into trouble. Ronald Allery, smoking.
Did they call him, what was his nickname?
Tinker.
Tinker boy? Well, do you think they got in trouble when they were caught smoking and the place burned? What happened after
They
that?
didn't do nothing.
No?
The principal got fired. That didn't make no difference. The year after it, the barn burned again. That's how come that school was closed. I enjoyed school. Once I was there, I was all right. I stayed there for 8 years, and then I went to Brandon. Then I come home, and my father said, no high school. You want me to continue school. I didn't know that education was so important. I went to school. I went to government house. After my boy was 5 years old, I went and worked at extended care nursing home, domestic dispute. Well, they helped me a lot. I had a lot of help. Yeah, because I wanted to go into nursing. I wanted to help people.
Yeah.
The staff, they had their rooms in the same building.
Oh, okay.
You know, they had their own room, eh?
But what about the principal? Did you have a...
They had their own house. It was just before Christmas. We went, in fact, it was Gracie Bear and Fred Bear's wedding. 6 of us. Florence Isaac, Lorraine McKay, Hattie Bear, Irene Gopher, Grace P. Peach, and myself. 6 of us. We ran away. We crossed the bridge. Not a bridge, but the dam.
Oh, the dam, yeah.
The dam. And then along the field. So we saw these cows. They started chasing us. To me, they looked like buffaloes, but we were getting tired. So we sat in a bush trying to sleep. We were all getting tired. Well, I was tired and wet.
Hearing the stories of Round Lake and climbing the hills and spending time with them. And, as you get older, you move on in life and do other things. But after coming home and realizing that a lot of that history hasn't been passed on now, and to preserve that history, because the residential school is part of our history. But I know in growing up with my Cookham and Musham, I know my Musham had said he only went to grade 6 there, and they kept him out because he was too big after that. I think he thought they were scared of him.
Musham Marlowe?
Musham Marlowe.
Oh, okay, I didn't realize he went there.
Yeah, he attended till he was grade 6. To take the good out of things, and leave the bad behind. And that was one of the things that they did, the good that they learned there. And they talked about how they wouldn't be able to, like Cookham, for instance, she went with her brother Frank, her younger brother Frank, Assiniboine, and how they couldn't talk to each other, how they couldn't speak in Cree, and if they were caught at the fence talking to each other, then they were scolded. Cattle, looking after the cattle, the chickens, and working in the fields. And they did that. I think our young people need to learn more. Some of our members, like you say, didn't even realize that they had a residential school. We learned to work hard and be proud of the work that we did. Cookham Grace, she raised a strong, hard-working family that moved on to the education. Some moved on into education. Fred Jr., who went on to work for SAS Power, a big Crown corporation. Education was a very important part of our life and moving forward in some way, whereas, in some schools I know they weren't allowed to see their children for those whole entire months. Hugh McKay would allow them to go home with their parents at that time and be part of that still. And I know he was criticized by the department for actually allowing the parents to come and take them at their pleasure to still maintain the ceremonies. You think of what they went through in residential schools. We're actually very lucky. So I think our young people should think about the sufferings that they went through so that we can have what we have today.
The school closed in 1950. On the site of the former school is Camp McKay, a place where children and their families enjoy themselves. Today, Ochapowace takes pride in being responsible for their children's education and for championing the growth of the nation.